Welcome to another episode of the Osasu Show. Today we are talking with the minority leader in the Senate, Senator George Akume. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Osasu.
What has been your single greatest contribution to the Senate so far?
Well, thanks very much. I'm George Akume, and minority leader of the Senate, and therefore in a very pivotal position to talk about not just myself, but the activities of the opposition party in the Senate, the APC. Well, the constitution of this country is very clear, talking about participatory democracy and in our own kind of constitution. We have a unicameral legislature. I belong to the Senate, others are in the House of Reps. As members of opposition in any democracy, our responsibilities to the people, we are expected to represent the voice of the oppressed. We are expected to be people who speak for those who are left out. We reach out to those who are left out. And in doing that, we apply certain principles. Is it right for the people? Is it right for the greatest number of the people? Is it in the interest of national security? Is it in the interest of our country? As legislators, we come from different constituencies. But again, because we are pulled together, we know we have a responsibility for the entire country. Based on this, myself and my own colleagues have decided to provide a very, very robust platform for those who are left out. I don't need to talk particularly about myself, but to talk about what the opposition has been able to do, opposition senators have been able to do in the Senate. We have promoted bills, we have promoted motions, we have made contributions. Quite a lot, the motions and bills that have been brought forward. The Senate, the 7th Senate of the Federal Republic of this country. We appreciate the fact that Nigeria is going through a very, very difficult period in its history. We've decided that critical components of legislation must be properly addressed. They must be assessed, addressed for the purpose of ensuring that what comes out is in the best interest of the citizenry. I want to mention in particular appropriation bills. All over the world, appropriation is a major component of legislation. Why? Because it is in tandem with the primary purpose of government. And the primary purpose of government is what? Protecting the lives and properties of the people and promoting their welfare. And therefore, appropriation bills are properly brought before us, properly assessed, properly passed, and signed into law. It is expected that based on our laws, they should be implemented faithfully and fully. Against this backdrop, I want to bring before you issues that have been raised, which have been ignored, but which are critical.
I'll chime in there, sir, I'm sorry. Corruption has been an issue. I know you're talking about some issues, so I just want to narrow it down and focus on several of them. Corruption has been an issue that this country has faced for many years. Corruption is not only an issue of Nigeria, it's an issue that every single country in the world faces. So what have you done as part of the legislation to promote bills that would hinder and reduce the level of corruption that we're facing in Nigeria?
Well, corruption, it's something that has no frontiers. It's like doctors without frontiers. There's no country in this world that can say it is corruption-free. But that is not even the issue. Corruption is like what? It's like la mort, it's like death. La mort, because I speak to somebody who also read French, is death, la mort. If you don't check corruption, there is no way you can make any meaningful leap in life, as a nation, as a people. I want to emphasize on, we've been to Singapore and I made a comment. When Singapore was created on Malaysia, they said what? Zero level tolerance for corruption. See what Singapore is today. Corruption may be relative, there's no doubt about it. But corruption has been elevated in this country to official policy. Corruption in the oil industry, corruption in pension management, corruption in the ministry, corruption in parastatals. Honestly, I speak on good authority that with corruption, Nigeria can never move forward. I'll give you one example. I was in Germany.
Sorry, sir. Let me just repeat the question again. So what have you done as part of the legislative to create an institutional framework to moderate corruption in Nigeria and prevent such things from happening in the future?
Well, it's very true that institutional framework has been put in place to check corruption in this country. Whether you are talking about Code of Conduct Bureau, you are talking about EFCC, you are talking about ICPC, you are saying what? That yes, we agree that corruption should be checked, and therefore these are institutions that are created and funded to ensure that corruption is eliminated or reduced to the barest minimum. As a government, your responsibility is to do what? To ensure the implementation of the letters and spirit of these acts, establishing these bodies, anti-graft bodies. Nigerians, under the present democratic experience, are very, very sure and convinced that what is going on is deliberately sponsored by the government. I'll give you a few examples. When EFCC was created, I was the governor of Benue State at that time, and the principal officer of the National Assembly said EFCC was designed for recalcitrant PDP governors and opposition politicians. In any case, that is not just what I'm saying. We have tried to remodel as much as possible what the EFCC should be doing, ICPC and so on. But don't forget the fact that in this country, filibuster is not a wonderful part of the tradition of the National Assembly. And therefore, no matter the legislation you have put in place to check the excesses of the executive respecting corruption, you will not succeed as long as the head refuses to implement what it is supposed to be implementing. I say this on authority. Our legislations are strong enough to check corruption. The problem in this country is that the leadership rises every day to undermine all institutions, democratic institutions and practices, procedures, to ensure that what they want must say true, no matter whose ox is God. The issue is what? Very simple. We start from leadership. If leadership shows what? The example, the rest of Nigerians will follow. Let me give you one example. Forget about what I said about Buhari. War against the indiscipline. For the first time in how many years, Nigerians were able to queue up. Whether in London at Heathrow, whether in this country, wherever they were, to do things according to procedure. that is not only the issue. Today, whenever I'm in my vehicle official, if as former governor, a serving senator, if I'm meeting grant, I hold it. If I'm coming, I throw it in my car. I won't throw something out. This was something we learned, we internalized, and we have been trying to also what? To operationalize.
I'm glad you brought up General Buhari. So if General Buhari is elected as president, what are some changes that he would implement in Nigeria?
Well, I want to say this with all emphasis that General Muhammadu Buhari is a great Nigerian patriot, a man who loves his country, a man who has been tested, a man who was what? Governor of Northeastern State, which today comprises of 6 states, making up what? Northeast geopolitical zone. A man who later became what? Minister of what? Petroleum resources. No single oil well. A man who later became what? The head of state without a single oil well. He has no private jet. He can't live a modest life, austere life. A man who sleeps and dreams Nigeria. A man who in action is a bulldog for the interest of this country. If elected, and we're sure he's going to be elected because Nigerians want him, they will, one, put a stop to corruption. He says he's going to draw a line, and I support him. It happened in what? Hong Kong. Because corruption was so rife, just like what you have in this country. This is a cesspool of corruption. General Buhari says he's going to draw a line. Because you can't spend how many years, just 4 years, just in corruption. You can't finish because it's too bad. Eliminate under his government resources that are unleashed, that are freed, will be channeled into very, very productive sectors of the country to make life more meaningful for the people. Number one. That's number two. Creating jobs. Using resources from the appropriate quotas, cause one, he has pledged all these loopholes. He will have more money to use. He will rejuvenate agriculture, reactivate agriculture, providing jobs, 200 jobs, 200,000 jobs per state within the first year in office. Not only that, General Buhari will provide infrastructure, the critical one being what? Power. My sister, let's be honest. I speak not as a partisan person. After all, I'm one of the founders of the PDP.
But some of the people in your party have been accused of corruption as well. So how can you promise Nigerians that we're going to start off on a clean slate, that these people would not affect the change process that APC claims to implement?
Well, that was the governor of Kano State during the Gabon administration, Audu Bako. They confronted him with this question in Lagos about receiving 10%, that governors were receiving 10%. He said, what about 90%? Go to Kano and see what 90% is doing. 90% is doing. Today, 90% at the national level, 90% is doing what? It's going to private pockets. I happen to know Audu Bako because he said he was married to my auntie. Go to Kano today, he's a reference point. And in any case, when they talk about the leaders of the APC, they are on very slippery ground. In 1999, when we came to power as governors, we knew the governors who were rich. One of them, Asiwaju, Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Lagos, Alero of Kebbi, Bafarawa, Yoruba. And my friend from Delta, James Ibori, Ojikaro, the one from Borno, and so on and so forth. If investment sagacity, they have been able to advance their frontiers in business. You are saying they are corrupt. These same human beings who are running these things, documentary, cannot stand before EFCC, an independent EFCC, for 5 minutes. They can't. You can't sacrifice Tinubu. I went to Tinubu's places in Lagos before West Winnie.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Osasu Show. We're still talking to Senator George Akume. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You and your fellow APC senators recently staged a walkout when Senator Obanikoro was confirmed as minister-designate. Why was that?
Obanikoro is an interesting story. Why? Because Obanikoro is one of us. He's a former senator. He was cleared to become an ambassador and eventually posted to Ghana. He came again, he was cleared to become eventually became Minister of State. If he came before us and he was cleared as ambassador, he came for a second time, was cleared as minister, why is it that he was met with very stiff resistance for a third time of his appearance before the Senate? Things went wrong. He was part of that complicity in a deliberate and determined offensive against democratic institutions. They worked very strenuously against the wishes of the people of Afikiti. He has never denied it. He was there, pretending or boasting from the government, from the president, we do this, be on the council, you cannot be promoted. We have to do what? To depoliticize the military. It's a bad case, trying to subvert the democratic process, and that is treasonable felony. To be honest, in other claims, his name wouldn't have been popped up at all. And once there was resistance, the president in civilized countries would have withdrawn him immediately. There are over so many people from Lagos who can be minister. We are annoyed because our tradition is that, yes, you are a former senator, you take a bow, you leave. But again, that is subject to good behavior outside the chamber. If George Akume, because I'm senator today, tomorrow I'm accused of doing this and so on, I should take a bow. No. There is the golden rule in the Senate, where two senators disagree. You stand rejected.
So how do we go about strengthening the institution so one man cannot come into power and deter us from the progress that we're making?
Well, this is a young democracy. Maybe 16 years old. It's a young democracy. We're still learning the ropes. The framers of our constitution, after our third experiment, first, second republics, decided that we go presidential. Obasanjo or Murtala Obasanjo government decided we go presidential, centralized power in one man, because of a structurally and culturally complex system. Pull this together to ensure our territorial integrity. That was after Civil War and our unity. President wields a lot of power. In the Senate too, the president wields a lot of power.
What happened to the peace accord the APC and PDP signed? You know, I've heard that both parties have been making threatening statements to each other.
Not both parties.
Well, Governor Rotimi Amechi mentioned that he would run a parallel government if the presidential elections were rigged. That is not only threatening to the president, but that's threatening to Nigeria as a whole. That destabilizes our country. So what happened to that peace accord, and how can we ensure that there would be peace after the elections?
Well, the peace accord is very simple. The fundamental issues are very straight. That elections should be free and fair. There should be no violence. That the umpire must be seen to be umpire. That's the INEC. In a situation where there is rigging, then the people's verdict is subverted. And Mechi was frustrated when he made that comment. And look at what Mechi has gone through in Rivers. Wonderful work is done for the Rivers people because the First Lady is from Rivers. Insulting her, snatching a telephone from. Mechi cannot go for a rally in a Okrika because Tom Polo says there will be no rally. Even if the police says yes. And you see that there is no system, the whole thing has collapsed. It's sort of frustration. But the APC continues to be committed. Our presidential candidate has made these comments repeatedly. But we want a free and fair election. But make no mistake, election must be free and fair. No way about it. No two ways about it. The elections must be free and fair. It is the interest of all of us to have a free and fair election. Otherwise, whoever forced himself on the nation is making a mistake.
So do you think INEC now is prepared to hold a free and fair election, given the postponement of the original election date from February 14th to March 28th?
Well, INEC was ready to go. PDP was not ready.
It's funny because PDP said the same about APC.
No, we never said that. PDP, the largest party in Africa, was not ready. They sent people around using government resources, funding this amorphous group, calling themselves TAN. Many of them have now acquired houses abroad, settled their families there. And then they said what? 18 million people supporting Jonathan because Buhari on his own garnered 11 million votes. So they said no. And I'm surprised that Anye, my friend, and I respect him, was presented as the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, doing the job of somebody who should be Secretary to the Government, not Secretary to the Government of the Federation. He was saying that we're laughing. And they know they were writing the names of trees and so on. They did it during Abacha. We're laughing. This government is most unpopular. INEC said we're willing to go. Don't forget, PVC was just used as a decoy. That's all.
But there was very low. Sorry, let me make this point. There was a very low percentage of PVC distributions, even in Lagos State. So there were many states who had less than 30% of their PVCs.
Everything was more than 30%. Ikiti was 40%. They did election in Ikiti. Today we're talking about 80-something%. They are still not ready. I see some of them appearing on the television, being paid by public funds. Anyway, they said no. Everybody, not everybody. How many people have voted in an election? Even if you are not for 2011 election that was also partly rigged, because I know what took place in Benue State. So someone didn't win, and he's not going to win. They have not been paying salaries. They are stealing our money. That is not even how many people voted, less than 35 million. Today, how many people, 50-something, have collected cards? And Nigerians must also be careful. They have a responsibility to go and collect their cards. INEC cannot go and deliver your card to your house. We are looking for George Akume. What is he sleeping? Don't come. Come tomorrow. He's in the hospital. Come. No, that is not the issue. What about the responsibility of the parties? Encourage people to go and educate them to go and collect their cards.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but one final question. How do you want the Nigeria you were born in to differ from the Nigeria you will leave behind?
Well, at 61, I was born at the colonial era. The colonial situation threw up its own challenges. But by the grace of God, 1960, we had independence. I was informed in primary 1 when Lucky was not in Impo. I was in primary 1. Beautiful schools. Classrooms were beautiful. The desks were there. The textbooks, teachers were paid regularly. And in October, I was given a couple of us given caps and flags and so on with meat and so on to independence. Of course, throughout my primary school, school fees were so modest. I went to secondary school, which was boarding. Of course, again, so many things were done to us. Privileges. Went to St. Louis, University of Ibadan. Wonderful, this is scholarship. So government actually took care of us. We want to leave behind a society where the new generation will be proud of our achievements of the past. And how do we achieve this? Ensuring that life is better. They have opportunities, they have access to good schools, they have access to good healthcare delivery system, and of course, they do what? They also have to express themselves maximally and efficiently in all areas of human endeavor. Wherever they want to go, they should be proud to say the preceding generation laid the foundation who are building on this. To do otherwise is to create a lot of problems ourselves. Tomorrow they will stone us. And I want to appeal to President Jonathan, your cup is full. You've done your best for 6 years. It is enough. Don't look for a third time. God bless Jonathan. God bless Buhari. Above all, God bless our country. And honestly, on that day, vote for all the candidates of the APC, from General Buhari down, for a new lease of life.
God bless you, sir. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Osasu Show. Senator Judge Akume definitely gave us an explosive interview. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.